Let's get some analysis on those pronouncements made by ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa, and we're joined via Zoom by political analyst Prof Amanda Gouws. Prof from Stellenbosch University, thank you very much, as always, for joining us on eNCA. I want you to perhaps start with a broad level analysis of what was broken down in this statement. As usual, the ANC will come out and make big promises on important issues. One of the top priorities in this one was the renewal of the party. I think there is a strong recognition that the divisions have only been to the detriment of the movement and threaten its future in the 2024 elections. But your overall high-level view on that statement that was delivered by the President today, and whether it was too bold to deliver on.
Yes, good afternoon. Well, I think, it's the 111th anniversary of the ANC, so the President is speaking to the party faithful, and he can't really be too negative or too self-critical. And I think this is exactly the problem. If we look at the statement in its entirety, it sounds like a watered-down State of the Nation address. It touches on all the same issues, with the SOEs, electricity, bad service delivery, issues of also issues around the party and party renewal, as well as dealing with corruption. And we've heard this all before. So I think that the issue here is how the ANC or the rhetoric of the ANC and how it reflects in terms of the optics. Now, if you've looked, as I have, on television at the statement, right next to the President, behind his left elbow, sat Batabile Dlamini, who was found guilty of perjury. There were other members of the ANC who had either been found guilty of corruption or who have, been complicit in corruption. So what does that say about the renewal of the party and the end to corruption? The President also talked about the end to gender-based violence, the same rhetoric about implementing the National Strategic Plan, getting more sexual offences courts, and so on. Then right at the end of the statement, young, scantily clad girls come out and do suggestive dances in front of the audience. So that's an objectification of women as far as I'm concerned. So it's the optics that really belies the statement in itself. And the statement in itself doesn't tell us what is new, what will change. How is this actually different from the 2022 State of the Nation address?
And that probably is, as you say, very problematic, because going into the 2024 national government elections, the ANC might not have a stronghold as they assume that they're going to get, saying that they're going to be renewed and the new leadership is going to initiate the necessary change. Are you confident at all that the new top seven is going to be able to, using this watered State of the Nation address, as you have called it, use it as a direction to initiate some actual change within the movement?
Well, the President also spoke about unity, but if we look at some of those people in the top seven, they are actually supporting the radical economic transformation faction. They are, as supporters of the previous President Zuma. So every time there is, I think, a paralysis in taking new initiatives, it's because those two factions are struggling and fighting with each other. I think there is an opportunity now, and I think that the support for the supporters in the top seven, President Ramaphosa has the majority. But the problem is that these old rifts don't die easily, and so. I think this was a golden opportunity for the President to say, listen, I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to reshuffle my cabinet. I'm going to, implement some very serious regulations around corruption. I'm going to deal with the sabotage in Eskom, for example. I mean, today in the papers we read about Andre de Ruyter being poisoned. We read about all kinds of other sabotage at Eskom. So to say we have to deal with Eskom and ensure better electricity provision doesn't mean much when you're actually dealing with very, very serious insurrection in many ways when we talk about Eskom.
Yeah, no, I mean, they have said that there have been a lot of nefarious parties that are operating within the corridors of that state-owned entity that have kind of landed us where we are now. One of the important things, which I think is going to be important for the ANC to reflect on, Prof, is the Tripartite Alliance. COSATU, the SACP, quite scathing on the conduct of the ANC and them feeling excluded largely by the ruling party when it comes to major issues of discussion like the energy crisis, like youth unemployment, unity within the party and the like. How important is the Tripartite Alliance in 2023 and going into future elections? Does the ANC need to hold on to this and make sure that it remains and grows stronger, or is it something that can fall by the wayside?
Well, you know, this is the thing about the ANC that's always called themselves a broad church as a liberation movement. And that has contributed to the problem of turning into a democratic governing party. So you can't have communists sitting in cabinet in what is seen as a new liberal capitalist economy, and you also have the unions that's also supported or represented in government. There are, opposing and contradictory tendencies. And so for a party to become a governing party that's more cohesive, I think that, it would be best if the Tripartite Alliance break up. Now, the president talked about restructuring the Tripartite Alliance, but I mean, what does it mean? It can mean a lot of things. So, but in my own mind, I think it's passé. It's something that really the party needs to become far more united and cohesive as a governing party.
Yeah, and I mean, as we move forward ahead of those 2024 elections, what would you say the president needs to focus on alongside his new team as low-hanging fruit, Prof, to perhaps handle some of the immediate crises that he's surrounded with, just to reinstill some confidence in a voter base that the ANC has lost quite significantly over recent years?
Well, I think what the citizens of this country really want is good service delivery. So, the president remarked on the potholes in Bloemfontein. So starting just by delivering on the most basic needs for the citizens, fixing the potholes, sewage, garbage collection, providing water and sanitation and so on. I think that's a place to start. But it also means that there needs to be very clear instructions from the national government to local level government in order to fix this. The local government's not going to fix it by itself. There's also too much corruption in local government. So this is a complex issue. But, I think, and this is where the president will have to step up. He will have to say, listen, this is how we're going to govern this country. And those who are not falling in line then just have to be kicked out of government.
Yeah, and how do you think that's going to play out, Prof? Because as you mentioned in your earlier response, those divisions still exist and they'll be difficult to break down. And the president might want to tackle these issues quite aggressively. And one wonders if he'll be able to do so, given all of the little factions that exist within the party. Do you find with the current structure or the leadership as it stands at the moment that he might have just enough support to approach these issues with a bit of aggressiveness?
Well, I do think so. I think that he was actually re-elected as the president of the ANC by a rather good margin. And so, he also now has very little to lose because it's his second term and his last term. So I really think he has a window of opportunity now to, just take a stand and be quite strong in the stand that he takes. But that also means, he talks about, I think the other side of the coin of the statement was that cadres are ill-disciplined, branches are ill-disciplined, and the leagues are in disarray. So in order for that, for him to take a stand and a strong stand, those things need to be fixed. So discipline, the discipline in the ANC needs to be restored. And I think that's where he needs to put his foot down and say, cadres who are ill-disciplined, they will have to deal with disciplinary hearings and so on. I mean, that's I think, the first step to rooting out ill discipline and also those networks that are actually quite deeply implicated in corruption.
Here's a topic that is continuing to gain momentum ahead of those elections, Prof. National coalitions that we might be seeing after those elections. The ANC starting to entertain the idea that it could potentially happen. What are your thoughts on this? And if you think there is a proper level of maturity amongst not only the ANC but the other big parties that we will be able to create a proper national coalition should results turn out that way after the 2024 votes?
Well, we've seen how difficult coalition governments are on a local government level. So we can expect the same problems. And we've already seen it in the metros, right? How the metros have undermined their mayors, or got rid of their mayors and replaced them with mayors from another party. So coalition governments are complicated governments. And I think, you know, we're most likely looking at coalitions in 2024 unless the ANC managed to keep up its support above the 50% level, which doesn't look very good at the moment. The parties are not mature. The opposition, I think, have so much opportunity now to step up and do the right thing, but they don't. So I think we all need to be quite worried about, we worried that the ANC is in power, that there's no power turnover since 1994. Yet on the other hand, if it goes below 50%, we then face the problems of coalition government. So we're between a rock and a hard place, I think.
We are indeed, and it's unfortunate given the current climate that South Africans are forced to live under. I talk here about the economic climate and now the political climate, just as difficult for us all to navigate. Thank you, as always, for joining us. That is political analyst Professor Amanda Gouws joining us from the University of Stellenbosch, just weighing in on the January 8th statement and the various issues that the ANC is going to need to tackle ahead of those elections in 2024 and the very real reality of a potential national coalition.